Do you want to rock some more? I want to rock some more.
How I wish you were here.
You know the melodies, but do you know which singer died days after recording? Or who may have predicted their own suicide? These hidden truths sound like fiction, and yet every one is real. 25. Stayin' Alive, 1977. A disco anthem, right? Something to strut to, maybe laugh at. But what if Stayin' Alive was never meant to be fun? Behind the shimmering groove is a dark heartbeat, literally survival in a crumbling city. Barry Gibb revealed the song was about desperation and struggle, especially in New York's harsh streets. The Bee Gees wrote it for the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, but lyrics like, "Life going nowhere, somebody help me" weren't metaphor, they were blunt. At 103 beats per minute, the beat became so precise it's used in CPR training. Irony? Maybe. But it's hard to dance once you hear the pain in the rhythm. Even the title feels like a mantra, not a celebration. One more breath, one more day. Now what happens when survival isn't physical, but emotional? 24. Suicide is Painless, 1970. The theme song from MASH has a melody too beautiful for its title, but listen closer. This wasn't written by a troubled adult, it was penned by a 14-year-old, and that's where it gets eerie. Director Robert Altman wanted the stupidest lyrics possible, so he asked his teenage son Mike to write them. Mike's response, "Suicide is painless, it brings on many changes," became the film's haunting centerpiece. The song became iconic, used for both the film and later the TV series, but it confused critics and haunted veterans who felt it trivialized mental health. Mike Altman earned more from the royalties than his father did from directing. A joke turned anthem. A child's poem became a nation's meditation on death. But what if the next song wasn't written by a teen, but by someone already preparing to leave? 23. Me and Bobby McGee, 1971. You've heard her wail it, that raspy, aching voice, pure electricity. But few remember Janis Joplin never lived to see Me and Bobby McGee become a hit. She recorded it just days before dying of a heroin overdose in 1970.
On my dirty red bandana, I was playing soft while Bobby's.
Written by Chris Christopherson, the lyrics explore freedom and longing. Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. It hits harder when you know she had everything to lose, and did. Her version topped the charts posthumously. Friends say she recorded the final take in one emotional burst, and the studio went still afterward. No one spoke. The woman who sang about freedom was locked in a cage of addiction. So what does it mean when a song outlives its singer and sounds like a goodbye? 22. Don't Fear the Reaper, 1976. It pulses like a hypnotic dream, but Don't Fear the Reaper has always felt a little too calm, almost like a seduction, almost like an invitation. Blue Oyster Cult's Buck Dharma wrote it while imagining dying young. He later said it was about accepting mortality, not promoting it, but teens heard something else. After all, Romeo and Juliet are name-dropped in the second verse, two doomed lovers. Some stations banned the track. Rumors swirled about suicides, none confirmed, but the whisper stuck. The song's dreamy tone, layered guitars, and eerie harmonies turned it into an accidental anthem of oblivion. Even the band seemed spooked by how people interpreted it. So, was it ever a love song, or always a lullaby for the end? Now, what if the next voice on this list knew exactly what was coming? 21. The River, 1980. Bruce Springsteen's The River sounds simple. A man, his girl, and the long road ahead. but it's really about economic decay and crushed futures. He wrote it for his sister Ginny and her husband Mickey, who married young after an unplanned pregnancy and watched their dreams erode under blue-collar struggle. Bruce debuted the song live in 1979 before releasing it a year later on the double album The River, which sold over 2.5 million copies in the US.
To the river, heading to the river we die. Oh.
The lyric, "Is a dream a lie if it don't come true," hits like a gut punch, especially in late 1970s America as factories closed and hope dried up. This wasn't fiction, it was a documentary with chords. So what happens when protest leaves the streets and hits the speakers? 20. Street Fighting Man, 1968. The Stones weren't known for politics until this. Street Fighting Man was born after Mick Jagger attended a March 1968 anti-Vietnam protest at London's US Embassy. Riots broke out, thousands arrested. Jagger went home and hours later wrote a rebellion anthem that sounded more like prophecy than poetry. Though released in '68, its influence burned through the early '70s, especially during Nixon's clampdown and global unrest. Some US radio stations banned it, fearing it could incite violence. Keith Richards recorded the guitar riff on a cheap cassette deck, raw, distorted, and almost anarchic. It never cracked the top 40, but it cracked nerves. Decades later, it's still used in protest documentaries. And what if rebellion doesn't roar, but whispers through a velvet voice? Next. 19. Lola, 1970.
She walked up to me and she asked me to dance. I asked her her name and in a dark brown voice she said Lola.
Catchy, cheeky, subversive. Lola was a landmine wrapped in glitter. The Kinks released it in 1970, and for that time, it was a cultural earthquake. Written by Ray Davies, it tells the story of a young man's romantic encounter with a trans woman in a Soho nightclub, inspired by a real-life night out by their manager. The BBC banned it, not for the transgender theme, but for the product placement. Davies had to fly from New York to London just to change Coca-Cola to Cherry Cola. Despite controversy, it hit number 2 in the UK and number 9 in the US, turning into an accidental LGBTQ anthem. Davies never clarified if it was celebration or satire, but its daring made it unforgettable. So what happens when gender, identity, and heartbreak all crash into the same melody? 18. Famous Blue Raincoat, 1971. It's a letter, a sigh, a slow unraveling of a betrayal too poetic to scream about. Famous Blue Raincoat from Leonard Cohen's Songs of Love and Hate is perhaps the quietest act of vengeance in folk history. Cohen wrote it during a New York winter in a dingy hotel room. The song takes the form of a letter to the man who had an affair with Cohen's lover Jane. The raincoat? Real. Cohen wore it daily. The song never became a hit, but it became a cult relic, cherished by fans and covered by everyone from Joan Baez to Tori Amos. Cohen later said it felt unfinished, but perhaps that's the point. Betrayal rarely wraps neatly. And what if the next confession came wrapped in neon and heartbreak, just 2 chords away from madness? 17. Piano Man, 1973.
Sing us a song, you're the piano man.
Billy Joel never meant to write a hit, he just needed to survive. In 1972, trapped in a bad record deal, he fled to Los Angeles and played at the Executive Room piano bar under the alias Bill Martin. Every character in Piano Man was real. John at the bar, Davy, the waitress practicing politics. Joel played 5 nights a week, 6 hours a night, singing to the lonely, the drunk, the forgotten. He wrote the song as a memory capsule, not expecting fame. But when he released in 1973, it reached number 25 on Billboard and became his defining anthem. The harmonica riff? Pure 70s DNA now, but behind it was a man hiding in plain sight. So what happens when the performer becomes just another story at the bar? 16. Helter Skelter, 1968.
You don't you want me to love you? I'm coming down fast,
Paul McCartney wrote Helter Skelter to outdo The Who's heavy sound, but it took on a darker legacy. Released on the White Album in 1968, it became a chaotic symbol of unhinged energy. But in 1969, Charles Manson interpreted the song, and others, as coded messages predicting a race war. He etched Helter Skelter in blood at crime scenes. McCartney was horrified, saying it was just noise, loud rock and roll. Despite its 60s release, its infamy peaked in the early 70s during Manson's televised trial. The track became synonymous with madness. So what happens when a song meant to be loud becomes lethal? 15. Rhiannon, 1975. Stevie Nicks found Rhiannon in a dusty novel, a Welsh myth about a shape-shifting goddess. But when she sang it live, something strange happened. Fans said she became the character. Released on Fleetwood Mac in 1975, the song wasn't a huge chart hit, peaking at number 11. But live, it transformed. Nicks twirled like she was in a trance. She later admitted, "I don't know what happens, I just go somewhere else." Rhiannon, goddess of horses and moonlight, mirrored Nicks' mystical image, fueling rumors of witchcraft. The myth bled into the music. Fans believed her. Some still do. What if the next track was misunderstood, not as magic, but as murder? 14. Cocaine, 1977.
you wanna get down on the ground.
Eric Clapton's Cocaine might sound like a party song, but it was a coded warning. Written by J.J. Cale, Clapton's version came out in 1977 during his peak addiction years. By then, he'd spent $16,000 a week on drugs. In live shows, he added that dirty cocaine to clarify the meaning. The riff, infectious. The lyrics, misleading. Many fans saw it as an endorsement rather than critique. The song hit number 30 in the US and became one of Clapton's signature tracks, even as it haunted him. He later said he wished people heard the sarcasm. So how do you warn people when the warning sounds like an anthem? 13. Hotel California, 1977. Hotel California became the Eagles' biggest hit. Number 1 on Billboard, over 32 million copies sold. But few understood its meaning. Don Henley called it our interpretation of the American dream gone wrong. Critics thought it was about excess, but fans claimed something darker. Satanic symbols, cult references, backmasking. The hotel on the cover resembled the Beverly Hills Hotel, but urban legends said it was a San Francisco church turned a cult headquarters. The line, "You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave," fueled conspiracies. Henley denies all of it, but suspicion never left the lobby. What happens when paranoia becomes part of the melody? 12. Bohemian Rhapsody, 1975.
Just killed a man.
Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody wasn't meant to work. 6 minutes, operatic interludes, no chorus. But Freddie Mercury insisted. Released in 1975, it topped UK charts for 9 weeks, selling over 6 million copies. Yet Mercury refused to explain the lyrics. Fans speculated. Was it about murder, rebirth, a coded coming out? The line, "Mama just killed a man," haunted listeners. Bandmate Brian May said it was Freddie's thing. He never told us. Mercury's private struggle with identity adds new depth. He was diagnosed with AIDS in 1987, but never publicly confirmed it until a day before he died in 1991. The song became a eulogy before the world knew it needed one. So what happens when silence speaks louder than lyrics? 11. In the Air Tonight, 1981. Phil Collins debuted In the Air Tonight on his 1981 solo album Face Value. An urban legend latched on immediately. Rumors said Collins witnessed a drowning and used the song to expose the bystander. He denied it for decades. The truth? Collins wrote it during his bitter divorce from Andrea Bertarelli. The track's haunting tone and that famous gated drum break came from producer Hugh Padham's studio accident. It peaked at number 19 in the US, but became iconic through Miami Vice in 1984. That drum fill? Unplanned. That anger? Absolutely real. So what happens when grief gets mistaken for vengeance? 10. Angie, 1973. The Rolling Stones' Angie hit number 1 in the US in 1973, but its meaning remains blurred. Keith Richards said he wrote it while detoxing in Switzerland, naming it after his newborn daughter. Tabloids ran wild. Was it about David Bowie's wife Angela? Marianne Faithfull? Richards denied them all. Jagger's aching vocals and Nicky Hopkins' piano made it one of the Stones' most vulnerable songs. Despite being a rock band known for swagger, Angie became a staple ballad, selling over 1 million copies globally. The mystery became the myth. So what happens when the softest track carries the loudest rumors? 9. The Wall, 1979. Roger Waters wrote The Wall after spitting on a fan during Pink Floyd's 1977 In the Flesh tour. Ashamed, he imagined an emotional wall between performer and audience. Released in 1979, the concept album sold over 30 million copies, becoming one of the best-selling albums ever. The character Pink descends into madness, reflecting Waters' grief over his father's World War II death, brutal teachers, and band tensions. Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 became a global protest anthem, banned in apartheid South Africa for inspiring youth uprisings. The wall was metaphorical, but the isolation was real. So what happens when a concert turns into a breakdown? 8. Love Will Tear Us Apart, 1980. Ian Curtis of Joy Division wrote Love Will Tear Us Apart in 1979 as his marriage to Deborah Curtis disintegrated and his epilepsy worsened. He recorded it weeks before hanging himself on May 18, 1980 at just 23 years old. The song's title is etched on his gravestone. It peaked at number 13 in the UK posthumously and became the band's signature track. The lyric, "Why is the bedroom so cold?" reads like a confession. His bandmates found the demo too raw, but it was never re-recorded. Curtis didn't leave a note, he left this song. So what happens when the breakup becomes the eulogy? 7. Fire and Rain, 1970. James Taylor released Fire and Rain in 1970 on his Sweet Baby James album. The first verse refers to Suzanne Schnurr, a friend who died by suicide. His friends kept her death from him until after the funeral. The second verse captures his 1968 stay at Austin Riggs Psychiatric Hospital, battling depression and heroin withdrawal. The third, his struggle with fame. The line, "Sweet dreams and flying machines and pieces on the ground," mourns the collapse of his early band. The song peaked at number 3 on Billboard. Taylor later said, "It's 3 separate tragedies stitched together." So what happens when trauma finds rhythm and no one notices? 6. The Needle and the Damage Done, 1972. Neil Young recorded The Needle and the Damage Done live at UCLA in 1971. It's just one take, raw, trembling, and real. He wrote it for Crazy Horse guitarist Danny Whitten, who died of a heroin overdose in November 1972. Witten was only 29. Young called it a little song, but it's got a lot of pain in it. He watched several close friends spiral into addiction. It appeared on Harvest, which hit #1 in the US and became one of the decade's biggest selling albums.
I seen the needle and the damage done.
No studio polish, just sorrow and 6 strings. So what do you sing when the people you love vanish before the encore? 5. Riders on the Storm, 1971. The Doors' last single with Jim Morrison is more ghost story than rock song. Recorded during a Los Angeles thunderstorm, the band left the rain and thunder in the final mix, like a warning you can't quite decipher. Morrison's lyrics weave between the romantic and the sinister. There's a killer on the road, his brain is squirming like a toad. Some say it was inspired by serial killer Billy Cook. Others think Morrison was writing about himself, restless, wandering, unpredictable. Within weeks of its release, Morrison was found dead in Paris at 27. The rain on the track feels less like atmosphere and more like a curtain falling. It's the sound of a man already halfway gone. 4. Gimme Shelter, 1969. The Stones have swagger, but Gimme Shelter is pure apocalypse. Keith Richards wrote the opening riff in the dark while Mick Jagger was away on a film set. By the time the band recorded it, the world felt like it was falling apart. Vietnam, assassinations, riots. The real lightning strike was Mary Clayton's backing vocal. Pregnant at the time, she delivered her part in one take at 2 a.m., her voice cracking on rape, murder, it's just a shot away. That crack is not a flaw. It's the sound of reality breaking through the speakers. Hours after the song's release, the Stones played Altamont, where a man was killed in front of the stage. The track became prophecy, and the prophecy came true. 3. Behind Blue Eyes, 1971.
No one knows what it's like to be the bad man.
The Who's Behind Blue Eyes opens like a lullaby, but listen closer. It's a slow descent into a mind at war with itself. Released in November 1971 on Who's Next, Pete Townshend originally wrote it for a shelved rock opera called Lifehouse. The character was a villain, but a thoughtful one, and deeply conflicted. Townshend later admitted it reflected his own repression, rage, and shame during a time of fame and spiritual confusion. The acoustic calm breaks midway into a defiant burst. When my fist clenches, crack it open. It's not a threat, it's a plea. The track never hit #1, but it's one of the band's most covered songs, a confession disguised as control, and maybe that's what makes it timeless. 2. Wish You Were Here, 1975. Pink Floyd's elegy to their lost friend Syd Barrett isn't just nostalgia, it's a quiet scream. Barrett, once their visionary leader, had drifted into mental illness and isolation after heavy LSD use. Roger Waters and David Gilmour wrote it almost as a letter to him. We're just two lost souls swimming in a fishbowl. Recording was tense until one day Barrett himself wandered into the studio. Overweight, head shaved, unrecognizable. The band didn't realize it was him at first. He left without saying goodbye. They never saw him again. The song became both a personal eulogy and a universal one for anyone who's ever loved someone who slipped away.
So you think you can tell?
1. Cats in the Cradle, 1974. On the surface, it's just a gentle folk song, but Cats in the Cradle is a generational ghost story. Harry Chapin co-wrote it with his wife Sandy, who drew from poems about her ex-husband's distant relationship with his father. The verses track a father who's always too busy for his son until his son grows up and is too busy for him. Chapin released it in 1974 and it hit #1. Many listeners saw themselves in it, sometimes uncomfortably so. Tragically, Chapin died in a car accident in 1981, never seeing the song's decades-long echo in pop culture. Radio DJs still play it on Father's Day, half tribute, half warning. It's not about death, it's about the slow erosion of connection, which might be worse. If you made it this far, you're not a casual fan, you're one of us. Click the screen to unlock even deeper stories from rock's shadow side. Your favorite songs have so much more to say.